See my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
Hey, success.
better, much
All
better.
right. Thank you, Susan. So again, to state what all of you have gone through, all our interactions, all our classes were held remotely from the end of last spring to summer, fall, and this spring. So we've gained a lot of important lessons, as have you guys, and we'd love to kind of hear from you some of your experiences and how we could kind of be able to utilize this. So specifically this spring, 402, which is taught by Scott Thomas, and the capstone project 460 that were held remotely, no in-person contacts. That included our capstone projects, which meant interactions with the industry folks. It was not done face to face, but that didn't really take anything off of what could be done. As I mentioned, our seminars were I should say, pleasantly, surprisingly, very popular. And I'll talk a little bit more about what are some of the things we're doing there. And we're going to formalize in putting a course together for credit for students, seminar course. The student one-on-ones are also done remotely. Our mission hasn't changed, but definitely delivering on that mission probably will change as we go forward. And one of the changes and I think it could be significant in our case, is that we are drawing a lot more professional workers, part-time students. And what does that mean? What that means is in the past, we had full-time students going through a 10-month program, and we got a fresh batch of another bunch of students coming through and presenting, at the spring semester, end of spring semester, a project symposium, which was either a poster session or now, these presentations that would basically be the termination or culmination of what the student went through for 10 months. I believe that it is going to be a little more splintered um, and we'll have a mix of part-time and full-time students. And the timing would be very different for a specific student, whether depending on whether the student's coming part-time or full-time. So what else could we be thinking about? We're thinking about having students who are outside the state, who don't necessarily live in the state. So what are some of the projects they could take on? Well, they could take on projects, with the company they're with. That could be an option. We haven't really come to that as yet, but definitely our mission has not changed, but the way we will deliver it, probably will have to be able to adopt changes as we go forward. So what do I do here? Okay. So I mentioned last meeting that we are probably thinking of putting together a graduate certificate program. I was maybe a little bit optimistic in saying it's approved. Paperwork hasn't come through, but it's on its path for being approved. And that would be a 15 credit course. Again, with the idea of it being attractive to full-time workers who want to pace their involvement in these academic pursuits. They could decide not to go forward with the degree and just have the certificate, which would take 15 credits. But if they do wish to go forward to getting a degree, they can apply the 15 credits towards the 30 credit course. We have introduced a new 3 credit course, which is the seminar and field trip. We always had that, and we made it mandatory for the students without grade. But we're realizing that this seminars bring in a lot of interesting perspectives. What you heard from Clint today, Clint's, of course, was very sweeping and very big in its kind of scope and mission. And, we have similar talks, by experts, in different industries. And typically every seminar would draw 30 to 40 to 50 people. And I credit that to two reasons. One is people can be attending the seminar while sitting at their desk, which is a big plus. And the speaker could be, he or she could be sitting at her desk, um, many miles away without having to worry about traveling to Lehigh to be able to present this. So again, this remote methods of interaction is really very advantageous. So this course will be a 3-credit course that we will hopefully introduce in the fall. It will be ESC 461, titled Energy Seminars and Field Trips. And again, we've always been doing this without credit. Now we'll do it for credit. So the program offerings includes a Master of Engineering in Energy graduate degree and the certificate, which again, we are optimistic that it will be available for the fall semester. And there's no doubt the second bullet, certificate, is really to be able to attract professional workers whose time commitment for a 3-year duration for Master of Engineering may not be very certain. They may want to pace this in a different manner. Again, this has not changed. It's a 30-credit course, 6-4 plus 4 electives. The core subjects are taught by industry professionals, and the 6-credit industry sponsored capstone project. And we're striving to get more variety, more diversity in the kinds of projects that we take on. And we really rely on the council to be able to kind of give us insights and headway into these projects. The program takes 10 months as before for full-time students, but for part-time students, we're starting to see a lot of them in our cohort. It's 2 to 3 years. And this is a certificate program, 15 credits, and it too, even for a part-time student takes, or a full-time student takes 10 months to complete. Again, the focus is to be able to incent professional workers to consider a graduate certificate program, which could be a stepping stone to a Master of Engineering degree. Our council has not changed dramatically. Horace is replaced Tony McFadden. Cheryl couldn't make it today, and Andy is still the chairman. And Andy, if you are I think you're still there. You want to say a few words?
Andy is not. He stepped away. He texted me.
Okay.
He'll be back in a bit.
Okay. Maybe at the end we can have him talk about thoughts and words. We had 2 capstone projects. Again, we see, in the past, you would have seen 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And really the change is because of the flavor and the profile of students coming into our program. Those 3 students you heard from today will be graduating this spring. Jasper probably will have to wait till fall. Is that right, Susan? Because he still has to. He was a part-time student, switched to full-time.
He'll be able to, once he completes the August course, he'll be able to graduate in August.
Oh, okay, right. So he was actually a part-time student and changed his mind and came back as a full-time student. This is what I want to talk about. It's kind of very interesting trends that we're seeing. We were always concerned about depressing numbers coming into people actually enrolled. I can say that we look not just a little bit better, but far better than what we went through this past year. We're projecting 12. That's at this point is somewhat aspirational, but we have 10 people we can count on to be joining this coming academic year. They're not all full time. Again, I think the split would be if we had 10 students, it would be half and half, 5 students full time, 5 students part time. But remember, their part time students from previous years will be working with part time students coming in this year. But we still, I think the recruitment campaign has been a little more successful than in previous years. And a lot of this has to do with Susan's help, in putting together these seminars. I'll go through some details about how many kind of head count on the number of seminars we did. But the campaign is still focusing on Lehigh undergrads, the local area, the Lehigh Valley colleges. We have in fact, students coming in from our sister colleges, Muhlenberg and Moravian, and working professionals. I believe that will continue to be a source of students coming into our program. And the second bullet talks about money, scholarships and funding campaigns. The PETA campaign, which is something sponsored by Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, has always been a resource for this program in being able to utilize those monies towards defraying some of the costs. Always helps a student coming in. But this work that you heard Clint describe is really the involvement of ESE with ICPI, which is the institute, the Cyber Physical Institute that was set up by the dean. And so the success there, with something like what we will be doing with the Clint's organization, hopefully would be a sign of things where we could get some industry projects and scholarships that could, again, help in attracting students to our program. So let me just go back to the slide. One thing that I know Susan and I were very happy to see the numbers going to double digits. I don't think we ever achieved this for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And just getting 10, sounds great. But I hope we can get 12 or even more than that. And I think it's not a false hope, because we still plan to do a couple more information sessions that could increase that count. Any questions on this, or any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, Rudy, Jim Gallagher.
Yeah.
Just a question. Do you have any partnerships, for example, with power utility companies in Pennsylvania or the like, where they will sponsor students, from their employees to participate in the program?
Good question, James. I'd love to have that.
Let me expand one little bit about that. And I teach, for example, I teach a graduate course at Clarkson up here in New York on energy regulation and restructuring. And I'd say of the 11 students in my last class, probably 9 of them were from National Grid. And they received, their tuition was basically paid for by the utility. And it seems to be a model that's working. And it seemed like it would fit here just as well as it would at Clarkson.
Absolutely. You're right on the money, James. We do have a student from PP&L this year. And she brings a couple of things to classes. First of all, some of the practices that I talk about at utilities is not new to the student, and she's able to share this experience, with the other students who may not be aware of this. And so there's a lot more collaboration and
Right.
much more discussion, and um, familiarity is the best way I can put it. We would love, in fact, if Andy comes back, we can ask him, because when he set up this program, PP&L did have a grant, for not exactly to doing what National Grid is doing with you, but something along the same basis. And I think we're trying. I think PP&L has really very interested in working with us. In fact, the next info session will be doing it with PP&L personnel. Actually, a week from today, we'll be doing that. And that's no doubt because of our association, through this new student from PP&L. She's able to spread the word, as it were.
Yep. No, it absolutely, it's such a great benefit to having those people with that working, real-time working experience, sharing stories, sharing experiences. And, I think it really helps everyone.
Horace, you have a question?
Yeah.
Comment,
Did
sorry.
you have an opportunity to speak with Crystal along these lines? Con Ed, we have a tuition reimbursement program where the students or employees reimburse 50% for courses taken towards a certificate program. And if they're going towards a degree, they're reimbursed up to 80%. And upon receiving the degree, they're reimbursed the remaining 20%, I believe. But I'm just not sure if you were able to follow up with Crystal on that.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on this slide? So at the end of this, well, in the next 6 weeks or so, we'll have a better hold on the total amount of sign-up enrollment. But one thing, it'll be a mix of full-time students and part-time students. And, hopefully we will reach this aspirational number of 12 students, which would be quite an accomplishment over the past 5-6 years. We haven't reached this double-digit numbers. Our recruitment strategy, again, which is very similar to the profile of students coming in. We're looking at, obviously, our traditional feedstock, which is people who have just completed undergraduate school. And there's no doubt that the students that come out of Lehigh with an undergraduate degree, in fact, the 3 students that you heard from today were all Lehigh graduates. Very coincidentally, from a different branch of engineering. From Thomas was from chemical engineering. I believe Jasper was electrical engineering, and Dylan was mechanical. If we can get students from Lehigh, it would be and we continue to get a lot of talented students from Lehigh, and this batch that will be coming in will get at least 3 or 4 full-time students from Lehigh who are coming in, and they're very, very highly qualified. B and C are the ones that are starting to show up, maybe coincidentally, because of the pandemic and because of the fact that we are doing this remote learning. I think this has given them an advantage of being able to not have to move. There's no doubt we're missing something in this process because this is experiential learning. We have to adapt. How do we translate what we used to do face-to-face to doing this remotely? I know that you guys know this, you are in your business, but many times I feel that I wish we all instructors here had TV production experience. I mean, there's no doubt if you don't appear well, if you're not animated, capture their attention, the class is not going to be interesting in this new medium. And I would love to hear from you guys, what can be done to improve that. So anyway, so our recruitment strategy is kind of broadened from say 2-3 years ago to looking at all these different feedstocks, and they're about equal as we go into this new enrollment period. Again, as far as numbers are concerned, this semester, we completed 7 information sessions, and we plan to do 2 more on May and June, and 1 specifically at PPNL next week. So, we haven't done this intense marketing in the past, and it's come about because, well, it's easier to do these information sessions by advertising, throughout the nation, throughout the world, in fact. And so this definitely has been a very useful asset to us in increasing our count. Again, it's a very modest increase in count. We'd like to get back to the times when, in the early days when we had classes of 20 or so, but hopefully we can get there. But this has been one area that I believe has kind of helped us. Again, just to looking at the outreach, what else is planned is 1 info session for PPNL personnel. I realize that it's difficult to focus for a specific organization, because the organization, there may be a conflict of interest, or there could be many reasons. So we have to walk this path kind of gingerly as far as looking at how could we do these recruiting sessions with certain companies, focus especially on those companies. PPNL being our local utility and their past involvement, with the program is probably one reason. But anyway, we're kind of finding a way how best to interact with, other organizations. As I go down the different bullets, also this collaboration with our ICPI and ESC is definitely going to bear fruit, especially in work that the ICPI will be able to do, as well as some of the fallout that can result in projects that we can be able to execute on through our capstone program. I mentioned the seminars were very successful, and we had a great roster of speakers and topics. And Jim Robinson kicked it off, the very first talk on February 9th, which had an attendance of over 60 people. And we've had that steady trend all the way through the very last talk that we had on April 20th. So I thought this energy seminar series this semester was particularly well attended and very informative. I mentioned the themes of our capstone projects. It hasn't changed. This is something that's of interest to a lot of students who come in. And we obviously would love to kind of get project ideas from you guys, to be able to continue offering projects that students can work on. The key ESC activities, again, this ICPI team to assist in industry outreach has been quite extensive this semester. So much so that quite a bit of my time now is spent in looking at collaborating with ICPI. It's really yielded some very interesting results. One is this collaboration with DOE. And we've been able to get industry advisors for an ARPA-E award that ICPI won. We were able to bring in utility folks who could help them be advisors in their program with ARPA-E. And hopefully this trend will continue. You know, our resources, could be brought to help our sister institute. And again, I don't want to ignore PETA because that has been a strong source of funding to defray student costs. And, I don't have to remind you, the cost of tuition is one of the primary obstacles in being able to attract students, especially if you want to have diversity, inclusion, having more women in our curriculum. But PETA has really been helpful. And I know Andy reminds me quite often about DOE workforce grants that appear. They are very useful. And one of these days, we can probably win one of those, and that will really help our cause in being able to attract students. Again, impact, I'm not telling you guys anything different. It has been, we need to look at a changing marketplace. You need to do that in your business, and we need to do it in our business. But how this is changing, we are still figuring out, what are the changes? How will they be permanent? Or is this something that will cease after the fear of the pandemic disappears? We don't know. I think some of the habits of remote learning have people are quite happy with that. Working out of the home is also something that people are starting to embrace. But again, it's not something unique to us. It's really it's quite obviously widespread. And I'd like to hear some ideas from you guys as to what we could be doing in this new regime, as it were. Whose iPhone? If somebody wants to come in? Okay. And so just a word of thanks. This has been a productive semester, somewhat unpredictable sometimes, but we worked through this, and we worked through this diligently and with a lot of patience. And I'd like to thank our team. Thank you guys. You've always been helpful in giving us an ear, especially in recruiting professional workers. I want to really sincerely thank what PP&L was able to do and what Con Ed talked to us many times. And thank you, Horace and Tony, for your assistance. I don't want to exclude students, who probably have fared probably not so well compared to all of us. Students come to college at it's a very formative years of their learning, social interactions, and one of the main things that one gains from going into colleges, was completely cut off. And so the students did well, given the circumstances and, given the situation. And frankly, given some of the loneliness, sitting on campus or sitting in their apartments and not being able to make them being far away from their family, which is always probably very difficult. And finally, the capstone project managers, I do want to thank you guys for being very helpful in making these student capstone projects a success. That was my last slide. Andrew, if you're still here, you want to say anything?
I don't think he's here yet, Rudy.
Oh, okay. Any questions on what you heard? I got a lot of chat. What's on the chat?
Up in there.
Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
No, it's a good program, Rudy.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think a great program. The one thing that you just mentioned, I believe, is just the way industry is going. And that is, this is a new paradigm shift. We're a remote working society now. In my company and in my department, engineering, we've worked, 5 days a week in the office and started moving towards work-life balance, giving folks maybe a day to work remotely. And since March 20th of last year, the entire department has been effectively operating remote outside of the office. So I think that really speaks to, the shift that's taking place. And as we look to return to the office, not return to work, because we've been working all along, we're going to be working probably 2 days a week is what the direction is at this point, and not just to address the issues of social distancing, but just the fact that employees are looking for this kind of flexibility, and we've managed over a year to continue to deliver on the roles and responsibility. So I think as you think about the workplace, as you think about the academic environment, you've got to factor in the remote student participants, and not having to be within the vicinity of the school is going to afford yourself a much broader pool to pull from. The question that you may have to consider is there some on campus requirement that would be appropriate for a certificate program and master's program, and what should that be? Just my thoughts and sharing a little bit of what's going on for us in my company.
Great. Well, I just want to do a kind of a round table or a square table or a rectangular table. This is, we kind of have this time, in this slot of time, we solicit your thoughts, what's going on in your business. And of course, the pandemic is probably an all encompassing factor. So anybody else want to go next on what's going on in your business and the pandemic and relationship to some of the things that I've shared with you? Kirk, did you have? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is Dave Turner, just real quick, kind of piggybacking on what Horace was saying. Yeah, we've realized that actually it's kind of a double-edged sword. What we did to make our operations center virtual has worked really well, and it enables us to work a lot more often remotely than we ever thought we would. What we're missing, and we're gonna have to figure out both in the academic and the commercial sector, is how we're going to continue to network. There's social interaction that is needed in order to exchange ideas, to develop relationships and advance some concepts forward. And it's that idea, the part that I think we're missing a bit, and we're going to have to figure out how to maintain some sort of networking capability. We are humans, and there's some interaction that's going to be required. It can't all be done through Zoom and Teams.
Right. And that's one of the conversations that we've been having. You mentioned that But beyond the networking is knowledge transfer.
Yep.
Knowledge transfer doesn't take place in the same way in the remote work environment where you're not seeing someone, you're not over their shoulder. And I was, having some dialogue with a colleague, and it started with the need for, our junior employees to be in because they need to, get that information and spend some time. But what I believe it spoke to more than anything else is the fact that our senior employees with the experience, they're needed to be in the office. It can't be remote all the time, and they need to be in a couple days because they've got the institutional knowledge. They've got the field experience where they take a junior person, one thing's in the office, but then also taking them out to the field in a substation and a generating station so that they can, make the physical connection. One other thing that just came to mind, Rudy, and, with Biden and much of what he's talking about, community college and preparing the workforce for the clean, well-paying energy future jobs. It's something to start to think about. I'm not talking about at a community level and everything like that, but just there may be opportunities there. Also, if it's even a matter of starting to get folks to, gear their thoughts, ideas, direction towards our industry.
Very good point, Horace, because, the Biden clean energy plan, his perspective is very practical, more jobs. So if somehow we could have a training program, it may need quite a bit of revamping from what we're doing, but it's something that we need to be thinking about because there's a big thrust on the jobs part of it, which is kind of very interesting, which is true. I think there will be a lot more jobs created. And I think how we are positioned to be able to take advantage is another thing. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. Anyone else want to go for next?
Hey, Rudy, it's Lauren. I can jump in.
Okay, Lauren, go ahead.
Okay. So actually, one of the positives I think that came out of this new working from home situation, schooling from home, is the fact that we had to learn new ways to communicate and to enhance our communication skills. I took a leadership course online, remote, over the course of the last year, and one of the questions I was asked was, have your communication skills essentially gotten worse since working from home? And I was the only one out of the group to actually say no. I think they improved because at PJM, at least, we don't use cameras, so I can't get that feedback from the facial expressions, from the movements. So I've had to learn how to communicate without seeing the individual. And I get it, there's that in-person piece that's missing, but I think it's also important, especially if this is the new paradigm, the remote work, students coming out of the program need to understand how to work in that way as well. So I think that is one positive.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Shishir, did you have something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I cutting someone off?
No, please.
I think Shishir had his hand up, so
Okay.
let Shishir go down. James will go to you.
Okay, so what I was thinking, although we were trying to promote the program in India, but at this point of time, the crisis is too big in India, and people have saving their lives as a first priority at this point of time. But saying the same, there is also an opportunity in the way the instructions had been delivered in last year and can be delivered in future. So partnering with Indian organizations and having some sort of twining arrangements, bringing corporates also in the fold going ahead can be a way ahead and can be a good opportunity. How that will be structured, we cannot comment today because we need to speak to few people before we can discuss that point. But there is a definite good opportunity because of the pandemic. People are more used to learning sitting on the desktop or on any computational medium. And the point that you were making, we all need to work on the projection, how we can make that online classroom more engaging and more meaningful will be the key success factor in any distant program, whether it's in collaboration with a partner or whether it's on our own delivered online platform. So these things will be important going ahead.
Thank you, Shishir. And you're based in Delhi, and I know that it's kind of the center of a lot of distress there. Please be safe, and thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay, James, go ahead. James, you had your hand up?
There you go.
Oh, Kurt, sorry.
No, James was muted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just mainly wanted to echo, I thought Horace made some very good points, and I agree 100% about how you lose a lot when you're not there in the office. The mentoring, pulling people aside, saying, here's how we do things. I mean, all of that is so important. And also his point about job training, and a point I wanted to make about job training, there is a lot of money starting to come down available in that whole area of job training to meet climate goals. And I think that's a very fertile area to stay focused on. That as that funding becomes available, I think it could help a program like this. But I also have a question. The classes that Lehigh is doing through this program online, are they real time or are they recorded? What's the nature of the classes? Because I have found, at least up here with Clarkson, the real-time discussions, the back and forth, the interaction is so much more valuable than pre-recorded classes, which a lot of professors use. And I'm just wondering what approach is used at Lehigh for this program.
It is real time. The term they use is synchronous.
Yes.
As opposed to asynchronous. Our classes are all synchronous.
Okay, good.
That includes, the courses that were taught. I think we should always be synchronous, at least, if not in person.
Good, I agree.
Kirk, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, it's just embellishing the thoughts that other people have mentioned. So for us, the growth and development aspect of things is really where we lose the most. We bring in anywhere from 10 to 12 to 14 new grad recruits every year. And quite honestly, they're the ones that want to get out of their apartment and come into the office. So we've got a fair amount of young folks that are showing up at the office, and the more mature folks are the ones, or the ones with young families are the ones that are either forced in a young family scenario or mature and choose not to do the commute. So I think that balance is a new challenge for us. The other challenge is working at home is extremely great because it's flexible, but you feel like you're working all the time. Even though you're not, because you're able to do your laundry while you're working, you're able to do a lot of things, run some errands that you'd normally have to waste your weekend doing. So finding that time to take vacation and learn the discipline to work is different for everybody. So I think we're all kind of trying to be sensitive to the different phases people are in their life and how to have that interaction. One of the things we set up was kitchenette catch-ups, we call them. And literally we schedule a round robin of 20-minute Zoom meetings with all the new hires across different people. So you can just meet new people in the office without coming into the office, just so, you know, you're basically mocking up the hallway discussions that you would normally have. So they're kind of little kitchenette coffee breaks. So that's one. The other thing is, you know, I do think the public is the new administration is going to, pump a significant amount of money into the economy, and how we use that effectively is going to be a team sport. I think there's a limited amount of technical assets in the industry. I think, we've lost a lot of legacy talent. So I think figuring out what projects are good projects to work in partnership is going to become more important, not less.
Yeah. Very good. Good comments, McCart.
We do a lot of work with INL. We do a lot of work with EPRI. We do a lot of work with the DOE. We do some work with the DOD. I mean, it's just, it's pretty fragmented the way that spending's going. And I think it's up to us to figure out what the right partnerships are for different aspects.
Okay. The person on the iPhone, you want to say anything? Anybody else who would like to say something about how has the business changed and what we could take from you guys and some practices?
I'll just add real quick that this year was a learning experience for all of us, I'm sure. But despite all the scariness and the negatives, like Rudy had said, we came out of it, or on the other side of it with the pandemic, with a lot of positives with the program, as far as the way we go about recruiting and red tape that had been there previously that was eased up considerably when we were kind of forced into a virtual world with the pandemic. Things we wanted to try before that it would have taken forever to get permission. We found ourselves being able to do, and I think that's one of the reasons why, like the seminars have been able to, get more traction, because people can quickly leave a meeting and jump onto another meeting, and then they won't miss anything.
Yeah.
So there were some positives out of it.
Absolutely. And I think you put it very well, Susan. I think typically a student takes about 10 minutes to get from one class to another if they were moving from one class to another. And not that they don't have that excuse anymore, it's just easier for them to be able to switch from one class to another. And that is also somewhat painful because you get Zoom fatigue. And I don't have to remind you guys, sitting in front of a TV screen for 4 or 6 hours at a stretch is a stretch. John Posada, you want to say anything about that?
Hey, Rudy. Just a couple of thoughts here. One, I mean, obviously everyone's talked pretty ad nauseum about the pandemic, and it's really been, disruptive and makes us think about how we do business and, measuring success in terms of outcomes rather than just sort of presence in the office or presence in the classroom. So, we have placing a lot of importance on deliverables. And I think, younger people generationally excel better at communicating digitally than maybe, always being present in the office all the time. So, any way we can complement that is fantastic. And then the use of what I think is really critical to a successful team is the use of the appropriate use of, project management software or platform to accomplish goals and provide quality deliverables. So, are you guys using any kind of, what platform or suite of software does Lehigh use to keep students engaged? I mean, are you guys using anything specific in this program, like Asana or Monday? Those packages come to mind.
Those are new to me, and I tell you, I confess that I need a lot of catching up to do on some of these. That's exactly what we're looking for. If we could enhance our interaction capabilities with things like what you just mentioned. John, why don't you talk a little bit about those apps that you just brought up?
Yeah, so Asana and Monday.
How do you spell that first one?
Asana, ASANA. So it's kind of a workflow software where you can track a project through its inception to its completion. And it's something that the type of software is something that IBM really pioneered with some of their consulting teams. And it's almost like the word's slipping my mind that as to how you would categorize this, but it's sort of a whiteboard software.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd have a team leader involved in the software, issuing directives and providing team members with their workflow and their workload, and then they would sort of comment on their progress and provide updates as it was available, and then your team lead would then review and ask for revisions. And it's a really great tool to track projects in a digital world where we're not all in the office, where pandemic aside, you might just have a team that you've pulled together from across the region, across the grid, and you're all working on something. And really, that's not something we want to be tracking just by email. We want to use something a little more collaborative and dynamic.
Very interesting. The one thing that we do use in our class and other classes too, is things like YouTube, where you're able to demonstrate like technologies like that, Bill Gates' technology, Tearaway, is it? I forget. How nuclear fuel can be utilized, and it is a beautiful video that that company has on YouTube. Is you can't think of a better way of showing how does that work now. So accessing things like YouTube has really increased through this remote learning. But I'm personally very eager to see what are the other things out there that make a classroom lively, that engage students in a way that they're not able to do in a remote environment, or they were able to do in an in-person environment. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more of those technologies that we can leverage, the better off we're going to be going forward here.
Yeah. Well, John, since you're local, maybe we should visit, and I'll sit down with you and go over these tools that you guys are using.
Well, that sounds great.
Okay.
Rudy, this is Jim Robinson. There are a variety of, I'll call it entry-level to-do list type software. Asana I've used. I've used ASANA. It's a very good piece of software. It may be a little more formal than some and organized for some, but there are ones that if you Google for the top 10 to-do list programs, many people have found those to be very helpful on keeping tabs of what's coming up for the next week. If students use the traditional pencil and paper list of things they have to do and scratch them off one by pencil, many people have converted over to to-do list software that integrates with Siri. You can dictate to Siri an item you want to do tomorrow, and it keeps it in a priority list. Another one that's sounds kind of flippant, but works well is an application called Remember the Milk.
That's a good one.
And my point is if you're working remotely, there are a variety of things that are team collaborative. Asana is one that's team collaborative, where you can keep track of what your team members are doing, where they stand on a capstone project, and who's got what to do next on a capstone project where you have 2 or 3 students working on the same project. Things like that might be a modern learning experience for students that they would use after they leave. Most of us, like myself, who are traditional, keeping a paper list of things I had to do and scratching them off, that's really not needed anymore.
You know, we do have something called the Jamboard, which is it's kind of interesting, you know, when everybody collaboratively can scribble their own notes or put sticky notes and stuff like that. That's kind of useful. Any other thoughts, comments? I don't want to hold you guys any longer. It's been a long day for you, for all of you. And thank you for your interest in working with us. That's really, really useful. I mean, you know, without you guys, you know, we won't be where we are today. We definitely want to look for new ways to enhance our enrollment, bring in more people, enhance our curriculum. You know, especially some of these ideas that you guys came up, you know, something that we'd like to look at more closely and talk to you guys personally, and especially these training courses, you know, and for clean energy, you know, how we could go forward. I'd like to thank Clint for his keynote address. I thought it was very stimulating, very stimulating. If we could change the nuclear industry to something that's really high tech, which we can. And frankly, it is a future for the zero carbon world, you know, as you go forward. Thank you again, Glenn, for helping us here.
Thanks,
Anybody
y'all.
else?
I enjoyed the day and hearing from the students and the discussion this afternoon. Very impressive program. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay. Any last words from anybody or we sign off? What you would expect is the meeting minutes, hopefully in the next one or 2 weeks. And then hopefully I'll have some happy news to share that yes, we've broken the double-digit barrier, and we're on to bigger and better things, and we'll have a more diverse and comprehensive enrollment for the coming academic year. Andy, any last words from you? I guess Andy's, Scott, do you want to?
Yeah.
Scott?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, it's been a very hectic afternoon for me. I've tried to be in and out of the meeting. Just want to thank everybody for participating today, and really appreciate the support for the program.
All right, with those words, thank you, Scott. thank you all and have a good evening. And again, we will have this fall session sometime in November or early December. Thanks for your attention, and
Hopefully that one will be in person.
hopefully that'll be in person. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rudy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Shishir. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Vince, Lauren.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Vince. All right, Susan, this is 4 hours of recording, so
Yeah, a couple people had asked me, they had to drop off early. Catherine Target Gross was one that her plans had changed. Some
Yeah.
committee meeting came up. So a couple people wanted to review the recording. So as soon as it like compiles, we can do that.
yeah, Brent Stringfellow was there, and he was very
So was Don
complimentary.
Don Pazda. They
Don
both were there.
Pazda was there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you get all the any of the evaluation sheets, or